Hey guys, this is part of a series of relatively short focused videos giving you practical advice you may not want to hear, but advice that's actually useful about teaching English in China. I teach at the university level. She teaches kids, but I've been involved with training her and preparing her to do her job. I had both experiences within the last year, really. And there will be a playlist somewhere. You can look around this video and figure it out, but there will be a number of other videos of this kind on this channel. If what you're hearing seems useful to you. We're going to deal with two topics in this video: grading and classroom discipline. So I think a lot of people just don't think sympathetically about their bosses and the administrators in the university they work for, if you're doing university level English teaching, or in the school that they work for. I was in a situation just a couple of months ago where after my semester wrapped up, I got a phone call from someone higher up in the university saying, look, this student failed and she's very unhappy. We got to do something to help them. I do think that when that administrator started the phone call, I think she assumed she was just going to bully me into raising the grade. And there were a lot of you'll see anecdotes about that on the internet. But I responded in a totally principled way. I said, you can look at the list of grades for that class. The majority of people writing the same exam got over 80%. There were a lot of people who got grades in the 90s for that exam. So the exam was not too hard. And this particular student got 8%. 8. It's not like a situation where the student's getting 49 and somebody's making a phone call saying, could you bump it up from 49 to 51 so the student passes? No, this is 8. And it was interesting, but I stood my ground in a totally principled way. And the other person, I think she's also a principled person. She just hadn't really thought it through. She was, sometimes people just have the attitude of, oh, there's a leak in the wall, stop the leak. They're not really thinking through what the problem is. She, because the way this professor said it is, we have to do something to help her. We have to do something to help the student. I said, I agree. I said, what can we do to help her? Well, just say that back. I'm not going to raise a grade from 8% to 50%. That's ridiculous. So I agree with you. Her level of English is way too low to be in this course. She can't complete the program. And I know when they graduate this course, they're supposed to go on to be English teachers themselves. It's supposed to be at a high enough level that they go from being students to being teachers in 1 year. So I said, so what do you want to do? Can we set up remedial classes? Can we set up special sessions? I was offering to use some of my own time. And I was asking this professor, she can use some. Do you want to set up special lessons to help the student? And I think it was pretty obvious from the other end of the phone that she didn't. You know what I mean? So this is my first thing about grading. A lot of people come into this with cultural stereotypes. And South Korea is really infamous for that, of people literally handing you a red envelope full of money to raise someone's grade or putting pressure on you or something. I think it's just important to think about the other people in the equation, what they're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to accomplish. For me, I do grade generously. When I assign grades to students, I do try to be fair, but on the other hand, I actually do not judge the student based on their level of ability when they come into the classroom. So in a sense, that's an uneven scale that's making it easier for the students who are at a lower level. So if I have a student who can just barely speak English, who's much lower than the average of the students, and they come in and give an oral presentation, they prepared well, they did a good original written composition, they tried their hardest, they were trying to pronounce English clearly, they made a good effort relative to their level of ability, they can get an 80 or a 90 from me, no problem. And another student who's at a very high level of ability, in a sense, I'm kind of normalizing that at where you start at. You could be at a very high level of ability and make no effort. I have just one student like that this year, to be honest with you. I have one student, she's at a high level of ability. She's the one who went to the provincial competition. So the other professors picked her out as being especially good too, and I think that went to her head. But she would come in with 5 words jotted down or no prep at all, no notes, and would just kind of improvise some crap for her formal presentation, formal oral exam. It was like, look, you may be better off than half the other students, but no, you didn't really answer the question. You're not really living up to the criteria for the assignment, so you're getting a lower grade. But I do grade generously because, again, I don't gain anything by giving students low grades. And you have to ask yourself, what are you calibrating your grading for? What are you trying to measure? One of the big differences, so she's teaching children, I'm teaching university age students. One of the big differences is how much time and effort you're putting into grading, into evaluation. So you want to design your whole course so that's effective, so you're not wasting your own time, because there's no point having a system where you're spending a lot of time making a measurement that's not of any use to anyone. It's not of any use to students, it's not of any use to you. But yeah, fundamentally, if I can give students a bunch of grades in the 80s and 90s, I'm delighted to do that. And I recognize I'm different from other professors. A lot of professors come into this with their own emotional damage from their own experience as a student, whether it was in high school or university. They feel like, oh, well, if I could only get grades in the 70s when I was your age in university, you should only be able to get grades in the 70s. They have some like preconceived notion of what an A+ is, and you gotta leave that behind the door. I mean, like fundamentally, what I look at the assignment I gave them, and I do give very specific assignments. So there's a list of things, so they have to give a 5-minute presentation. They have to speak on this, 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 and this. And I say, look, if they did everything the assignment asked of them, they made a good effort, then why shouldn't they get 100%? I don't give 100% that often, but like grades like 97, like, they did everything in the assignment. They made a couple mistakes or left out a couple things. Why shouldn't that be a grade in the 90s? And ultimately, that's one of the ways you as a teacher can help them. Write assignments where it's really clear what it's going to mean to pass and what it's going to mean to fail. If this assignment tells you what to do and they can do it and they can understand it, and then, I mean, if they totally fail to live up to the assignment, they can get a low grade, but then most of the time you're going to be giving them positive grades that, again, I think should reflect basically their effort and execution. It shouldn't reflect the level of ability they're at before they came to your class anyway. There's no point trying to measure that. You can, but there's no if you do that, then your grading scheme is just going to be unequal and get more unequal. Then it's just whoever had a better education in high school before they became your student is getting a better grade. All right, enough about grading. The second topic of this video is class discipline, which you also have to deal with. I had one semester here, so I did 2 semesters, did a full academic year. In the first semester, I really forced everyone to not use their cell phones and to pay attention to me, and to pay attention to the student speaking when students were doing presentations. And in some ways that was very positive. For a couple of the students, it was traumatic, because students who were breaking classroom discipline, I would throw them out of the class. Normally I would do that. They're all female students. All the problems with female students, never with a male student. So the female student would have her cell phone and purse sitting on her desk, and she'd be playing with her cell phone and talking to a friend and laughing or something, being disruptive as well as not paying attention. And I would just take the purse and the cell phone and put it in the hallway and say, look, if you don't want to study, you don't have to be here. You don't have to come to class. And one student especially was really emotionally upset by that. And, she wrote me an apology letter later and stuff. It was a big deal to her. Other students react in different ways. I mean, ultimately, I don't care. Like, I'm just trying to control the class and conduct the class. And in some ways, that kind of harsh discipline was really positive. I can say for the mediocre students, it meant they learned more and had a more positive classroom experience. Because otherwise, what I did this semester, by contrast, I said to them, look, I don't need to force you guys to pay attention. If you want to use your cell phones, you can. And what I've done this semester is I put the desks in the center of the lecture hall into a circle. Out of my class of 40, every class, there are 9 students that are selected to sit in that circle, and they're doing conversation practice. They're getting more of my time and attention, and I'm getting more of their time and attention. And then for the other students, I'm not enforcing class discipline. If they want to sit there and use their cell phone, I'm ignoring that this semester. But obviously not for the 9 that are in the inner circle. They should sharpen up and benefit more from the educational exercise we're doing in that class that day. So, and that method, I've got to tell you, it has advantages. It really does. We're using class time way more effectively. I'm not spending my time and attention being punitive to other students. I get to be more positive and encouraging. But for the mediocre students, it's a lot worse, because they really become victims of their own limited attention span. And they'd be getting a lot more out of the class if they just sat there gazing at the chalkboard or gazing at whoever's speaking, whether it's me speaking or another student. Even if they were just passively listening to the English being spoken, they get a lot more out of it. And I have a couple students where I recognize them, I've known them for many months now, where last semester they were really bright-eyed and paying attention. They were really good students in class and participate. And this semester, they're victims of their own short attention span. Some of them have the phone open all class, and more commonly, some of them get 20 minutes into the class or even 60 minutes into the class, and then turn to their phone. They run out of gas. They run out of attention. And in some ways, I can respect that. I don't hate or demonize the students who don't pay attention, but it really is a big choice. The bottom line is, if you had 2 teachers working together, 2 in tandem, you could maintain 100% discipline. When you have 1 teacher working alone with 40 students, then it's really an either-or choice. Because if I'm spending my attention being punitive and enforcing discipline and making people pay attention, And these are basically adult students. They're 20 and 21 years old. And again, even saying to them, look, either study or get out, either participate positively or get out, pay attention or get out, then I'm not doing the other things I can be doing as a teacher. She teaches more in the Japanese style, which is to say there's one teacher and one translator, so one native speaker of English, one native speaker of Chinese. That's the way the JET program works, although in the JET program, the native Japanese speaker has a much more active role. But even then, sometimes you can win, and sometimes you can't. You have some classes of students that are excellent, but we had one experience where we had taught the lesson before. We taught one lesson with one class of kids, and it went great. And again, it's not about how entertaining it is, so we in tandem taught. I think it was you, me, and a translator. I forget if we had a translator or not. Maybe it was just you and me. But anyway, the two of us, we taught this lesson to these kids, and it went great. They recognized the educational value of it. Like at the end of it, they're like, wow, it was a good lesson. They participated. They were engaged. They practiced the vocabulary and sentence structure items. And then we taught the same lesson to a different class, maybe the next day, maybe just a few hours later or something. And it was just awful. The kids were just brats, and they didn't pay attention and so on. And I can speak enough Chinese. I was saying to them in Chinese, look, in this whole province, there were like 4 native speakers of English. Maybe that's generous. There are like 8 white people, but we might be the only ones who speak English. That's our first. I think we might be the only native speakers of English in this whole province. There are some Dutch people who speak English okay, but they're not native speakers of English. No, there's one other couple. Okay, so there are 4. There are 2 Americans here also, I forgot. Anyway, so there are 4 white people who speak English in this whole province, in Dahong. And I said, look, there are only 4 foreigners here speaking English. You got 2 of them in this classroom right now. We're trying to help you. This is really an opportunity for you. And you're throwing it away. You know what I mean? And it's really a shame when the whole class is bad, when their behavior is bad, because some of those kids are capable of good work. Yes, some of them just don't want to learn. Some of them just don't want to be there. And I sympathize. I know what it's like as a student to be forced into a position you don't want to be in. But it's really a shame when the class as a whole, when one part is dragging down the rest and so on. And that is, as I say, that's really the question. How much of your energy are you going to put into doing something that's basically negative, policing the students and trying to compel them to pay attention or not misbehave, and how much of your energy you can put into something positive, creative, and really educational.
Yeah, in your situation at the college, you can kick them out. But
that's true.
In my school, you know, the parents are paying for their kids to be there.
Right. No, that's true.
Just say, if you don't want to be here, leave. It's like, the students are supposed to be there. We're kind of their guardians for these hours that they're at school. So
yes, I think I have said that to them though. Like, if you don't want to be here, well, yeah, because they could sit in the corner or something. If you just want to play video games on your phone, get out. Like, you can go sit over there. They can't leave the school building. But still, yeah, I have said that kind of thing to them before. Yeah. Anyways, that's all I got to say. Both of these things, both on grading and on school discipline, I think my perspective is a little bit different. I don't see the job of a teacher as being an entertainer. When I'm teaching, I really am about communicating these vocabulary items, the sentence structure, whatever it is we're working on today. And sometimes I do a lot of lessons that have historical content. So I did one lesson with your kids when you were absent and your boss was absent. She called me in last minute to fill in, and I taught them about the history of the English Industrial Revolution, the Industrial Revolution in England. And at the end of that lesson, again, it's not like the kids were delighted, but they're like, oh, wow, like, this is a good lesson. Like, thank you. Oh, like, they learned a lot. It was interesting. It was engaging. And, we did simple stuff like the word coal, C-O-A-L, and the relationship to coal and industry and this kind of thing. It was engaging for them, but I'm not like a clown. I'm not there to make them happy. I think a lot of teachers do have that attitude, that they're there to make these kids happy, and then your attitude is something totally different. I can feel confident that what I'm teaching is worthwhile when I have a lesson like that. It's good in terms of vocab, grammar, and also it has some kind of historical point. It's something else to learn, even if the kids are brats, even if they don't respond positively. And the other side of it is, in terms of making your kids happy, if what you want to do is make people happy, why are you so reluctant to give them an 85? You know what I mean? Why are you reluctant to give them high grades? Giving them high grades could have a positive impact on their lives, can positively motivate them, and so on. Design your assignments so that it is possible for the best students to get 100%. Design your assignments in a way that's rewarding them in that most obvious way. That doesn't make a clown out of you. That doesn't trivialize what you're doing. Set up the obstacle course of the assignment in a way that they really can succeed, and reward them with high grades.